this bike felt like it had a soul.
It was a hard bike to get used to at first.
A Cinderella story. Like
69 plate as well.
It's a bike for the people. What's up, YouTube? Brian here. We're back with another episode of Old School Bike Reviews. This bike I'm super excited to talk about. It changed my life. It changed my riding career. And it's one of my favorite bikes of all time. It's got 26-inch wheels. It's got a dual crown fork. And it's a Scott Gambler. The bike has what looks like a really complicated linkage, but really it's just a linked single pivot with a creative way to fit that shock inside the frame. And this bike was an absolute beast. A dramatic upgrade from what I came off of, which was that Marin downhill contraption. There's a lot of things that made this bike special. Let's get into it. So I bought this bike as a frame, I think for $900, which was an absolute steal. And then I had a hodgepodge of parts plus my fresh X Fusion suspension that I just got sponsored by. This was a 10.5-inch stroke bike, most massive downhill shock that you could spec a bike with. The Vector air shock was, I think, the only air shock available in that like massive stroke size. The X Fusion fork was actually surprisingly good and supple. It was coil sprung and worked really well. I forget what the rest of the spec was. The geometry of this bike is starting to get into the rideable realm, at least what I would consider rideable nowadays. The large had around a 435 reach, and the head angle, you could toggle between a 62 and a 63 degree head angle with a high and low bottom bracket setting. You also had adjustable chain stays. They started out super short at like 425, and then you could go to, I think it was 10 mils longer at 435. So there were a bunch of different geometry combinations you could try. I was a fan of running it in the high bottom bracket and short chainstay. I don't think I actually ever tried it in the long chainstay mode, just because at that time short chainstays were being marketed as just like the best thing ever for everyone. Rode it in the high position just because the tracks around Northern California, they're just not that steep. It was just a really inspiring bike to ride. Some bikes you ride and they're fast and they work well, but I don't know, this bike felt like it had a soul. Like I was just inspired to do things on this bike that other bikes don't really just like give me that feeling or energy to like pull up and just charge hard. It was just such a fun bike to ride. All right, so before I got too in-depth into this bike, I thought it'd be good to bring in the other residential 2.6 Gambler expert that just happens to be in town. Tanner Stevens, how's it going?
It's going good. It's great to be here on the couch.
Yeah.
We're talking about Gamblers.
Yeah.
Best bike ever made. Yeah, it was a hard bike to get used to at first.
Really? What was your like first impression of it?
So I thought like the adjustability was really sick. I was like, this is gonna be so cool. I can make it like long and low and slack and like change it up for races and stuff. First race was Port Angeles. If you've gone there, you know that it's a kind of one-line track and it's not like the roughest track usually. So I had it in the low setting and short rear end, and I felt like I was just riding my bottom bracket on the ground the entire time. Yeah, and did not do well. So then I raised the bottom bracket, short rear end, and then it was like the sickest bike of all time.
Just took a little adjustment, yeah. Because I remember my first Gambler experience was on your bike, and I think you had just gotten like the new Charger damper, which was like freshly released, and you had like a custom tuned rear shock. And I forget what bike I was riding at the time. It was probably like one of my like 26-inch trail bikes. Maybe a Voltage or something. Yeah,
Kona maybe.
But I just remember like riding this one trail in Santa Cruz and like thinking I was like going like kind of fast on my bike, and then hopping on yours and just hyper speed on that, like just achieving things I like never thought possible, like on my first ride on this bike. And it was a medium too, so like even smaller by today's standards. And then yeah, ever since that day I was just like, holy crap, like I need this bike.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, the Charger damper too was like an insane upgrade from like that 2011 or whatever era.
Yeah, the 2010 Boxer. Yeah, the Charger damper, but with the like internal ramp control sort of thing instead of tokens. It was like a weird combo, but it worked really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, that thing was, it was a tiny bike. like we were just talking before this about how tiny that bike was, and like don't know how it worked or like why it worked, but it somehow like seemed to work really well for how small it was. It was like the Sam Hill on Iron Horse or like Sam Hill on Specialized when he rode like the size small bikes and like extra smalls. And you're like, I don't know how this thing works, but it works, and I'm not gonna question it.
Yeah, some like 26-inch wheel magic.
Yeah, you got like this is the center of the bike. Your like front end's over here. You gotta like be like 2 feet off the back for it to work.
Yeah.
Unlike today's like big 29ers that you just stand in the middle.
Where you're like in the middle. Yeah, it was like, I feel like you just rode them different because at the time it didn't feel weird. Like,
no.
At times you were like, oh man, I don't want my bike to be too big. Like this might be too big. Yeah. Every time like the new model came out, you're like, oh, I don't know. Like 430 reach. That could be a little too big.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think was like the thing that made this bike special? Because like we were talking about it, and like I don't know, it's a cool bike, but there's nothing about it that's like revolutionary. It's got decent geometry. It's got like a linked single pivot, but like I don't know, there was something special about riding it.
I think the single pivot was like somewhat high for single pivots at the time, so it was like a mid pivot almost. And then like the adjustability was cool, but also like if you knew that the bike would get like brake jack or whatever, like kind of stand up if you were braking, like you just brake in certain points and then you kind of like the bike worked really well.
Yeah, totally.
Like if you could just get your braking points dialed, like you're good. That's all you had to worry about on the track. Like point the thing wherever you want it to go, and it'll like the back wheel follows the front wheel. So that's what I noticed.
Yeah, it was just like hella stiff.
Yeah,
like
that pivot was like massive.
The pivot was massive. The rear end was just like, I don't know, like taking it out to replace the bearings, looking at the rear end, you're like, dude, this thing is like braced in so many different ways. Like, so you just felt super connected to like the rear end of the bike, and like the whole bottom bracket area, just everything was like insanely stiff. Your weight was super low.
Yeah.
Too, which just, there was like a lot of weight, but it was all at your ankles.
Yeah.
Which just like was surprised. I don't know, I haven't had a feeling in a bike like that since, where like the weight's like that low and you just feel like you can throw it around, and it just like, I don't know, it just makes it feel like super predictable somehow.
That combined with like kind of a very vertical wheel path, it like still felt snappy and like poppy, because like the wheel path was so vertical, you could just like kind of load up the suspension and just shoot you up. Like,
yeah, right. It just like the feeling I kept getting is like you just wanted to pull up off of things.
Yeah.
And like it felt good, and like it felt good to land too. Like there's clips of both of us just like pulling off of stuff that we like absolutely should not have been pulling off of, and just like it's gonna be all right. Like you just have like no worries.
The clip at the end of like that North Star video that we filmed, it's just like the tiniest tabletop to like no land. Like there was like a little crest in the trail that was like a crease, and I was like, I'm gonna go to that, and just like pulled up and just like bottomed out so hard, but didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah. It's like that seems like what's the worst that could happen? It's like this bike will like take care of me, I guess.
Yeah.
For some reason, it just like had that like feeling where you're like, I don't got anything to worry about.
Yeah, just inspired confidence. And then that like main pivot, I think the like, torque spec on it was something like 30 Newton meters. Like you could basically put the biggest crescent wrench you had and then just a breaker bar on it to tighten it, and you're like, we're good.
Yeah.
Also, that bike, like, you could work on with a crescent wrench, which is the sickest thing ever. Like, you're going in to, like, work on your bike, and you've got this crescent wrench, adjustable crescent wrench, take off the rear wheel and, like, tighten your main pivot bolt. Like, cool. I feel like I'm working on an 80s Toyota pickup.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a race bike. It was a bike for the people.
Dude, yeah, definitely a bike for the people.
And then, yeah, I rode my bike for like a decent amount of time, but long after I put mine to rest, yours was still going strong. Like, because, yeah, talk through your like 650B modification and like how you just kept ending up on this like bike, like going into like, 2017 or something.
I don't know, like I had a bike the next year, 2015, and then 2016. No one wanted to, like, dude, nobody wanted to buy Gamblers, like, used. Like, I don't know, you got yours for super cheap, I'm pretty sure. Like, nobody wanted to buy them. Some dude in South America offered me, like, $2,000 for it, and I was like, I don't even think, like, the hassle of, like, shipping it to South America would have been, like, too much, and I was like, I'm not even gonna sell it. Like, I'm just gonna keep it. Like, I like the bike personally, so I'm gonna keep it. 2015, didn't really like my bike. So then 2016, I was like, dude, like, I'm kind of done racing. Like, I'm over this. Like, I'm gonna go race some enduro races. Like, this is when enduro was like popping off. I'm like, I'm doing enduro. And then I got that bike, got some 27.5 wheels that I had, and then I got 27.5 lowers for that Boxer, which was like a 2014 Boxer, and you're not supposed to put 27.5 lowers on it. Like, had like some connection in the warranty department who like hooked it up and was like, yeah, like, here's some lowers or whatever. Like, I like totally told him that like mine cracked or something that were like 27.5 lowers. Gave them to me, and I got those on there. 27.5 wheels, front and rear, longer. Put it in the long setting. Put the 27.5 wheels on there. Still in the high bottom bracket. So this thing's like 14 something off the ground. Like, we're in the 14s now. And then, super inspired by Trey Jones at the time, the BMX rider. Yeah. So obviously I hit it with some rattle cans. Got it spray painted black. The thing was money. So yeah, then we started riding that thing, and then raced in enduro in Moab. It totally sucked. I didn't know where I was going. And then everyone was going to Port Angeles the next weekend. I was like, yeah, I'll go. Like, Matt Kondershoff, once again, great people, Kondershoff brothers. Matt and I drove up there, and we put the spray painted bike on the one spot, put it on P1 on the podium. We took the win at the first national round in 2016. That was the spray painted 2014 Gambler winning a national round. I think definitely pissed some people off, but I think most people were like stoked on it.
Oh yeah, dude, I was so fired up. That was like one of my, I think at that time I had just gotten on the Kondershoff program. Yeah. And like, it's so funny because you were like kind of on it, not really. Yeah. Like, and then, but Matt was like so pumped to tell all the sponsors, and like you weren't running the tires, like just the bike was spray painted. Like it was like such a bad look. Like,
I had like black like jeans on the podium with like Vans and like a hoodie, and like didn't look the part at all. Like, everyone's wearing their pajama kits and like looking like Power Rangers. Yeah. And then,
like, number plate 69, like, it's just like a Cinderella story. Like
69 plate as well.
Like, it could not have been a better race. I don't know. It's like so sick. I think I could have been racing Cat 1. I remember like watching your race run. So either I ran up or I wasn't racing pro at that time. I think I probably just came down so early that I hiked up.
Yeah, because I qualified 12th, I believe. So I was like pretty late which was like also like I'd never finished better than like 16th at a national round, like actually trying. And like that weekend I was like, dude, I don't even care. Like, I'm just here for fun. Like,
yeah, dark horse, dude. Like, imagine someone showing up to like your biggest race in your country on a bike that's almost 4 years old, that's spray painted, and then beating everyone. It was so fun.
Man,
I was so happy for you.
It was definitely a highlight of the career. And then I don't think I really had much of a career, but had that. Yeah. The one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
Never had a podium after that.
At least you got one.
Yeah. Went to a bunch of World Cups, never qualified.
Made it count.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't on the right bike, so.
Yeah. Dude, also rode that bike at MSA at a World Cup round on a spray-painted bike. That was like a few years old, so. Yeah. That was that bike. Yeah, it's seen some stuff. It didn't really hold up at MSA, but we put it back together, and then rode for a different brand in 2017. Was on a team, and then at the end of 2017, we rode Jugs in Santa Cruz, and I was riding the Gambler again.
Yeah, just brought it out of retirement. Where does it rest now?
It's hanging up, no wheels, no bars.
Yeah.
The stem was cracked. We found out after the season. The stem was cracked pretty much the entire season. I think the cranks are seized on, but there's no drivetrain, no wheels, no bars. I still have all the parts, but it's hanging up next to my parents' water heater in the garage.
Yeah.
And now I've got a new Gambler. So, yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
It's the sickest bike ever.
Comes full circle. Yeah. I think I only got rid of mine because I got the
newer one,
the 27.5 one. I was like so stoked on that bike, and then the 27.5 one was kind of just like a modernization of it. It felt really similar. It was just like a little bit longer wheelbase, meant for 27.5 wheels, and and then I rode that bike for like years to come.
Yeah.
But that's like, that bike for me kind of kicked off. I don't know. I feel like I had like a little bit of speed before that, and like I was still super reckless, but like I feel like that's when I was like, all right, I think I'm like actually going fast. Not
for like watching like you on that bike, it was like that was when it went from like reckless like gaps to like controlled gaps and like hitting like gnarly lines, but like in control.
Yeah.
And not like sending your life and getting away with murder all the time.
Yeah, totally. It was like, before that, it was definitely like rolling the dice, and I could get away with some stuff, but you're like, man, this guy can't really cash these checks that he's writing all the time. But yeah, my whole riding, like, definitely, I was still super aggressive, but it like kind of leveled out where I feel like, I don't know, I just had confidence in my bike, and I wasn't so like, just being sketchy fast. It was more.
Yeah, and that's when you went from like Cat 1 into Pro, was like on those bikes as well, right? Yeah.
So, that's kind of the jump from Cat 1 to Pro, is like being like sketchy fast, and then like you can actually ride this pace. So.
Yeah, definitely. That was, dude, that was a good era for bikes also, because you never knew what you were going to get with anything. Like there's no like base level that every bike was like pretty good. Like this was like the era of you could be on the Marin that you had.
That's what I was telling you. I was like, I was coming off some different bikes, like the Marin and the Podium, which were just like, I mean, horrible compared to like this bike, which actually, worked really well for what it was. You could definitely still pick up bikes that were like not gonna treat you well. So
where nowadays you can basically get any bike and it's gonna work pretty well as long as the suspension's like, been rebuilt and like works.
But I don't know. I think that's about it. It's like, I don't know. We've had conversations like this like plenty of times, just reminisce about the good old days. But it's really funny just to think back and like, I mean, honestly, how well those bikes rode with 26-inch wheels, like short ass reaches, and like, geometry where we would be like, that's sketchy nowadays. But in the moment, those bikes felt incredible. It would be fun to get my hands on one again and just like do another like shootout or something. But I think that's about it for us. We'll reminisce on some other bikes in another video, but thanks for watching. Sweet, nailed it.
Perfect.